My girlfriend and I are currently on our last week of an 8-week road trip to the south and west coast of the United States. Our goal for this trip was to visit as many national parks as possible and see as many new things as possible. 10 states, not including our first state of Missouri, and 14 national parks, not including Gateway National Park in St. Louis. The list of all the parks we've been to is Big Bend in Texas, Carlsbad Caverns and White Sands in New Mexico, Saguaro and Oregon Pipe in Arizona, Joshua Tree, Channel Islands, Redwoods, and Death Valley in California, Zion, Bryce Canyon, and Capitol Reef, and Arches and Canyonlands in Utah. And we're currently camping in Moab. You can see the harsh lighting of Utah. Unfortunately, I didn't make any travel vlog videos on this trip. I didn't want the stress of trying to get a video out each week to fog my firsthand experience of the trip. And I don't regret that at all. But after 7 weeks of living and camping out of this little Jeep, I'd say I'm pretty well equipped to give some good tips and advice if you want to do a road trip like this one. I'll go through how I packed everything, the products that have really helped on this trip and the ones that didn't really. I'll go through the things that I wish I brought and the things that I wish I left behind, and some overall tips that have really helped us on this trip. If you have a Jeep like mine, you can use some of these tips directly for your own build, but even if you don't, you can take some of these ideas and put it towards whatever vehicle you have, because the best adventure vehicle is the one you already own. On this trip, I've seen 2 Toyota Priuses that were off-road. They had a lift and big tires and gas jugs and all that. I saw a smart car that was lifted with huge tires. And just yesterday, I saw a minivan, off-road tires, boxes on the top. So really, anything you have is the perfect adventure vehicle. You'd be surprised what an old Toyota Corolla can do. A few things to note is that Taylor and I are not new at camping. I was on a trail crew where I actually lived in this Jeep for the summer. That was in 2022. Taylor has been camping so many times in her life, and combined we have some really good experience with camping. So it's not like we're going out on this 8-week road trip with no experience. We've been camping a lot. So if you would like to do a road trip like this, a good idea would be to get out near your home just for a night or two and kind of get used to it before any road trip longer than like a week. Another couple things that we did before we left was, one, we got a Planet Fitness membership, and it's the one where you can bring a guest to any location in the country. This way we can split the cost. It was only like, I think it's $25 or $27 a month. And we can go to any Planet Fitness along our route. Recently, that hasn't come in handy like it did in the first couple weeks where we were in New Mexico and Arizona. There were plenty of Planet Fitnesses. And the reason why this is a good thing is because we can have showers whenever we need to. Also, for me, Planet Fitness is kind of a comfortable, familiar place to go to. We can get a workout, and it almost makes you forget you're on a road trip far away from home. You can go somewhere, relax a little bit, take a shower, and since it's the Black Card membership, you can do the massages and all the extra stuff. That's something that if you're not really prepared for, you might have to go a long time without a shower. Another thing was travel rewards on my credit card. We were able to get a few hotels, and it didn't take a hit to our budget. Being able to stay in a hotel every week and a half or so is a huge help. Just being able to reset, you don't have to stay in a tent for a night. You can lay in a comfy bed, and you can also charge all your devices, because when you're out on the road, there's really no way to charge your devices unless you have a solar panel, which I'll get to. So this is our setup. Super simple, a ground tent and the Jeep. No trailer, no nice teardrop camper, no nice rooftop tent. This is it. So I'll just start with our camping tent setup. You can see it's a regular Coleman tent, and inside we have our sleeping bags, a couple boxes that those go on the roof, and those hold our tent and our sleeping pad and a couple other things. Before we left on the trip, we got this nice full-size camping pad for a gift for Christmas. It's a self-inflating pad, and it has been really nice and comfortable, a lot better than just a foam pad. So it's super simple, just a regular sleeping setup, and I will pack everything away and onto the Jeep to show you how it is packed away. Now moving over to the Jeep. So a few things about the setup in the Jeep itself. First is this platform that I built a couple months ago. This wasn't specifically for this trip, but it has come in handy for sure. It's just a simple wood structure, a couple pieces of wood that lets us have 2 levels of storage. And before the trip, Taylor's dad let us borrow his fridge, which was a huge help. It means we don't have to constantly be buying ice and having the temperature of our food fluctuate a lot. So this fridge has been super nice. And since we knew we were going to be borrowing the fridge, I went ahead and got this fridge, the sliding fridge platform from Overland Vehicle Systems. So this has 2 levels, and they both slide out like this. So this has been super helpful with making food or just hanging out, eating lunch. And having surfaces while camping is a huge help. You need surfaces to be able to do dishes or prepare food. And if you have a campsite that doesn't have a table or anything, where are you going to do all your things? You can't really do it on the ground. So having these platforms is a really huge help. It also has the sliding platform on the fridge part itself. We haven't used that a whole lot, but it basically lets you get access to your fridge a lot easier. So another really helpful thing about this platform is that we've been able to eat in like a Planet Fitness parking lot or trailheads or really anywhere. When it's lunchtime, we can just stop and pull the platform out and make a simple lunch, like a wrap with tuna and simple things like that. So Overland Vehicle Systems, they didn't like provide this or anything, but I got it on a discount, and I think it was a really good product to have. Now I will say, with the fridge situation, I already had a Jackery Explorer 290, a little Jackery battery pack. That's been running the fridge the whole time. In the first couple weeks, it was a little frustrating because the Jackery would only have power for a couple days before it would die, because the fridge had to be running 24/7. So I went ahead and got a solar panel from Harbor Freight. We were in, I think it was New Mexico or Arizona, where I went to Harbor Freight and got one of these simple 25-watt solar panels. And the annoying thing is that my dad actually had several of these at home already before I left, and I, for some reason, decided to not bring one. So if you're gonna have any battery pack situation on a camping trip, definitely get a solar power device, whatever it is. Either if it's a 25-watt panel like this, which was only about $65, and is definitely worth it because we've been able to keep the battery on for many days, because we can just basically trickle charge it all day and it stays charged. Jackery also makes a 100-watt panel. That's a folding panel, which is over $300. I was tempted to buy it after we already left for the trip, but it's nowhere in stores, and so having to order something and then time it while you're driving is too complicated. So this has worked out just perfectly, didn't break the bank, and provided us with some solar power to keep that battery charged. As far as cooking or heating up meals, I just have a regular, one of the classic Coleman stoves, the 2-burner green stoves. And this just goes on our little sliding out platform. And a super helpful product that I got before leaving for the trip was the Ignic 5-pound propane tank and a mount for my Gobi rack. This tank, it's week 8 now on this trip. The tank is still full. It hasn't run out once, and it was like $4.50 to fill up. So I'm guessing I would have gone through 2 or 3 or 4 of those little green 1-pound tanks, and those are like $20 for a 2-pack. So the tank, this 5-pound tank itself, is not cheap. It's $140, I think. But in the long run, I think it'll it'll cover the cost. It'll cover its own cost. So still with the food situation, what about the actual food itself and our utensils and plates and stuff? That's where these action packers come in. One of these has all of our food, and it's over a week's worth of food. And the other one has all of our utensils, plates, drying rack for doing dishes, pots, pans, everything we need. And these, I don't know how it worked out this way, but they fit snugly under this platform. And they fit like 2 deep, absolutely perfectly. So that is our food situation. The 2 action packers, the fridge, the platform. Another thing that happened to work out beautifully is my clothes box, which is in this Plano 48 quart, I think it is, container. Fits perfectly under the platform as well, and next to the action packers. So it's a tight fit, but that's actually a good thing because they don't slide or bang around. Tight fit, perfectly under here, has my clothes, the food, and the whole kitchen setup. And then up here is where all of Taylor's clothes go. Another little mod that has been really helpful is this netting on the roof. It goes from each roll bar, and it's just a cargo net. So we've been able to pack things like the windshield cover, the sunshade, some puffy jackets, some rain jackets, and the solar panel actually goes on top of this. So if you have a Jeep TJ, this is a good little mod to do. You can hold a bunch of extra stuff. And if you have any other normal SUV, you can probably string one of these across like where the grab handles are. Another helpful product is this spare tire trash bag. Not only do we use this for our trash, but we use it for our laundry bag. You can see that bag right there has our laundry in it. It keeps it out of the Jeep so it doesn't smell the Jeep up. And then in this side pocket here is some toiletries, maybe an extra pair of shoes or the Crocs. So since the Jackery there has been powering the fridge the whole time, it's important that we have another little battery so we can charge our phones or other smaller devices if we need to. And that's where this little green Engine Star battery pack came from Amazon. It was like $100. I got it several years ago. That thing is really good for charging phones or little lights. You can see it has a household outlet. And when you're using the household outlet, it does drain the battery pretty quickly, but if you're just charging your phone, it lasts a whole week. I've talked about some products that have been really helpful on this trip, but there is something that I wish I didn't bring. Not the Switch. The Switch has been a fun thing for entertainment on the trip, but this here is the Aquaport Hydro Spray. So this is a battery-powered water pressurizer, and when I'm camping short term and using that, since it doesn't have to power the battery, this is a great thing to have so you can have some pressurized water. Good for dishes, good for washing your hands, good for washing really anything. It comes with like a hose sprayer with different modes. But unfortunately, I haven't used this at all on the trip because the battery has been occupied by the fridge. So this one I would have left behind. It's worth mentioning the maintenance that has gone into the Jeep leading up to the trip. Several months before the trip, the Jeep had to undergo quite a bit of work. I installed 1-inch lift springs. You might be able to see their H&R 1-inch lift springs, and that triggered bad death wobble. So I had to go to several auto shops. They replaced a couple steering components. I then had to get new tires, and then eventually had to get both of my drive shafts rebuilt. So that's some pretty big ticket items that the Jeep had to have before the trip. Other than that, obviously oil change, I changed both of the differential fluids. I changed the transmission fluid, and I think that's about it. But there was a lot of maintenance that went into the Jeep before the trip. And although we've had pretty good luck with the weather on the trip, and we definitely escaped some of the Missouri winter in the beginning, not everything has gone super smoothly. When we were in Joshua Tree in California, there was a big windstorm and the tent just couldn't stand up to it. So the whole thing kind of collapsed. One of these connecting bars, you know how tents have the rods that go into each other, broke at the connector joint and ripped a hole in the tent. So that took a little bit of work and a little bit of duct tape to fix that. You can see our hack job with some sticks and a bunch of duct tape. But you know what? It does the job, and it fixed the main issue. Otherwise, the tent has been pretty good. Only things we would complain about would be it's not great in the wind, and it's not great with condensation. Sometimes whenever it gets really cold at night, we'll wake up and the entire inside of the tent is wet and sometimes starts to drip on us. I think most tents do that, but maybe a little bit better airflow could help that problem. Another super helpful thing for this trip are these custom-made window covers that Taylor sewed and made herself. So these are good for when we're parked at a parking lot or something, or a trailhead, and we will be away from the Jeep with all of our gear in it for several hours. Because you can see that it covers the whole window, and when it's down, you can't see anything inside of it. So if anybody wants to look in our Jeep and see all of our goodies in here, they'll just see a black cover. That's the inside. The outside's blue. The part that somebody would see is black. And there's some Velcro things on each corner where they can just stick right up there. And that has been a really, really nice thing to have, really good peace of mind. So a little view in my bigger Plano containers. You can see that this is the self-inflating mattress pad that I showed earlier. It rolls up into a nice bag and it fits in this box pretty nicely, along with some sleeping bag liners. And then the other bag will hold the tent itself. And these two boxes go on the roof rack on the Jeep. And so there it is, all packed up, besides the solar panel, which I said before goes on that net inside. You can see all of our bags are in there, all Taylor's clothes and extra things, my clothes, the food. You can see that the Jeep is extremely full. You can see the water jug and the gas jug on the roof, as well as both of the Plano containers and this folding table here from Coleman. This trip would not have been possible without my Gobi rack. I got the Gobi rack several years ago, and for obvious reasons, wouldn't have been able to do this trip without it. Otherwise, we would have had to have a trailer or something, or not had any tent to sleep in, which wouldn't have worked. So that's it. That's the full setup on the Jeep. 8 weeks out of that Jeep sleeping in a tent. It's been amazing. So I kind of maybe sped through the video a little bit. So if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments. But I really wanted to share our situation before we get back while we're still deep in the trip. So thank you all for watching. I hope you found some of this stuff useful, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Peace.